Welcome to this explainer. Today we're tackling something that hits a major nerve for pretty much anyone owning property down in South Florida. Let's be totally honest here. There is this immense and incredibly valid frustration in faithfully paying those sky-high insurance premiums year after year, only to hit an absolute brick wall of bureaucracy when your roof actually takes a hit. Right? You expect a safety net, but what you usually get is a maze. So in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how these claims work, why they get denied so often, and most importantly, how you can actually fight back. Because look, it's the core nightmare scenario every Miami homeowner absolutely dreads. You do everything right, you pay your premiums on time, and then boom, a massive storm rolls through, peeling back your shingles or cracking your tiles. You call your insurance company thinking, okay, help is on the way, but instead you get hit with that dreaded word, denied. It's totally jarring, but unfortunately, it's also remarkably common in the current insurance climate. Okay, let's dive into this. We've got a lot of ground to cover. Here's our roadmap for untangling this whole mess. First, Miami's perfect storm. Then, coverage versus exclusions. Number 3, the insurer's playbook. Fourth, navigating Florida law. And finally, fighting claim denials. All right, Section 1, Miami's perfect storm. So your roof is literally up against a daily barrage of elements down here. We aren't just talking about those occasional hurricane-force winds, though, yeah, those are obviously devastating enough to rip up shingles and expose your underlayment. We're also looking at the heavy rain and tropical storms that just force water intrusion into every little gap. Plus, you have to factor in the constant silent killers, right? The salt air that accelerates corrosion, that intense Florida UV exposure just baking and weakening the materials day in and day out, and rapid temperature changes causing constant expansion and contraction. Because of all these heavy stressors, even a perfectly well-maintained roof can suffer sudden catastrophic damage from just a single storm. Moving on to Section 2, coverage versus exclusions. Now, here is the absolute crux of most insurance disputes in Miami. It's like a tug of war. On one side, you've got sudden and accidental events. Think a massive windstorm, a hurricane, or a tree branch coming down on your house. That stuff is generally covered. But on the other side, you have predictable wear and tear, and that is strictly excluded. The fight almost always boils down to the insurance company trying to yank your claim from that sudden and accidental category right over to the excluded side. They're going to argue that your sudden windstorm damage is actually just gradual deterioration. And to do that, insurance companies are basically hunting your roof for these exact exclusions. They are actively looking for signs of gradual deterioration, or maybe a lack of regular maintenance. They're scanning for mold or rot that they can say wasn't directly caused by the storm itself. They'll look for faulty workmanship from whoever installed the roof, or any evidence of long-term pre-existing leaks. Because if they find any of that, they'll use it to classify your catastrophic storm damage as just a simple preventable maintenance issue. Which brings us to Section 3, the insurer's playbook. Let's walk right through this standard playbook they use because it's so predictable. First up, the wear and tear arguments, basically claiming your roof is just old and nearing the end of its life anyway. Second, pre-existing damage claims. Sometimes they'll even pull up old historical aerial images to argue the damage was already there before the storm hit. No joke. Third is late reporting. If you wait a bit to file, they'll argue they can't tie the damage to a specific storm or that you messed up their investigation. Fourth, failure to mitigate, which means, hey, you didn't throw a tarp up quick enough, so you let more water in. And lastly, installation issues, where they just shift the blame entirely onto the original roofer. It's just a systematically, highly practiced process of shifting the blame back onto you or the prior condition of your home. But you might be wondering, what if they actually say yes, but it's just nowhere near enough money? That denial is awful, for sure, but a deeply frustrating tactic we see all the time is the partial approval. This is where they technically approve the claim, but they leave you drastically short on the funds you actually need to fix your home. Yeah, insurers frequently rely on very specific underpayment strategies to pull this off. First, they might try limiting the payout to just a tiny localized repair, when what your roof actually needs to be structurally sound is a full replacement. Second, they might use these estimating softwares that spit out numbers that are way, way below the actual Miami market costs for labor and materials. And third, they frequently just exclude the cost of code upgrade requirements, and that leaves you footing the bill out of pocket just to bring the repair up to modern Florida building codes. It's crazy. Let's look at Section 4, navigating Florida law. So under Florida law, the clock is ticking. There's a general requirement for insurers to make a decision to either pay or deny a property insurance claim within 90 days of the claim being filed. Now, sure, there are some exceptions for factors outside their control, but generally speaking, day 90 is your absolute crucial deadline. So, the crucial point here is that recent changes in Florida law have drastically shifted the financial responsibility right back onto you, the policyholder. Today, your policy might only offer actual cash value for an older roof rather than the full replacement cost. You likely have separate and usually much higher deductibles specifically for hurricanes. There are these new endorsements that trigger age-based payout reductions. And very importantly, there are new, really strict limits on your ability to recover attorney fees in these disputes. That means in a lot of cases, each party is on the hook for their own legal costs. However, the law does still impose obligations on the insurer, most notably this thing called the duty to act in good faith. Basically, insurance companies are legally required to handle your claims fairly, honestly, conduct reasonable investigations, and actually evaluate the evidence you bring to them. But here's the catch. Proving bad faith in Florida requires navigating some very specific, very strict procedural hurdles. You can't just yell bad faith because you don't like the payout amount. You have to follow a very rigid legal process.
Okay, let's get into Section 5, Fighting Claim Denials.
Listen closely. A denial is not the final word. Please understand this. The insurance company's initial no is really just that, initial. So many denied or underpaid roof claims in Miami are successfully challenged every single year.
Let's move to and see how this builds into a highly manageable action plan so you can fight back. Step 1, review that denial letter incredibly carefully. They actually have to state the exact policy provisions and facts they relied on to say no. Step 2, obtain independent inspections. Get qualified roofing contractors, engineers, or public adjusters out there. Step 3, gather your strong evidence. And Step 4, request a reconsideration, file a complaint with the Department of Financial Services, or consult an insurance attorney.
Now, what exactly does strong evidence look like? Well, you need to build an ironclad case against those wear and tear arguments we talked about. This means having clear before and after photos and videos showing the roof was totally fine prior to the storm. It means securing expert opinions that explicitly link the damage to a covered cause, not just aging. You got to show clear proof of timely reporting and keep a really solid file of all your past maintenance and repair records just to prove you proactively took care of your property. On the flip side, there are some critical mistakes you absolutely need to avoid because they can inadvertently sabotage a perfectly valid claim. Do not delay action. Do not fail to document the damage immediately with your phone camera. Never accept a lowball settlement offer without having it reviewed independently. Do not rely solely on the insurance company's adjusters because remember, they work for the insurer, not for you. And please never sign blind agreements without fully understanding what rights you might be giving up. Finally, keep your eyes peeled for specific red flags that indicate a denial is highly questionable and absolutely warrants some aggressive pushback. For instance, was the adjuster's inspection incomplete or super rushed? Did they clearly overlook some obvious storm damage? Did they misapply the actual language in your policy? Have there been totally unreasonable delays pushing way past that 90-day mark? Or maybe the denial letter just completely lacks a clear factual explanation. If you see these red flags, you need to fight back. Now, for high-value or really complex disputes, specialized legal guidance is out there. Based on the source material for this explainer, the Farber law firm represents homeowners throughout Miami and South Florida, specifically in these types of property insurance disputes and complex roof damage claims. Obviously, outcomes always depend on your specific facts and policy language, but the main takeaway here is that you don't have to navigate this maze completely alone. So, here is the big question. Will you be prepared with the right evidence when the next storm hits, or will you let the insurer dictate the value of your most prized asset? Understanding your policy and acting quickly really is your best defense. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and stay prepared out there.